Good evening. Going live in about 30 seconds. We're just preparing for a merge feed. So, hi, hang in there. You can stare at my spiffy Rob Anderson for Congress t shirt with our fabulous logo. Huh?
Rob Mob's better.
Rob Mob's better. I like the logo. If we could somehow merge it. Are we at 7 o'clock yet? Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Swampside Chats. I believe it's the fourth edition. It could be the fifth. I'm not sure in this year 372 of quarantine that we're undergoing. My name is Rob Anderson. Can I have a glass of water? Excuse me. Sorry. A little drier in this room. Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Rob Anderson. I am running for Congress in Louisiana's 3rd Congressional District, as most of you know. But if not, welcome to the Rob Mob. Hashtag state the obvious. It is Wednesday, April 22nd. We have a lot of stuff to go over, so we're going to do a slightly different format this time because we've had a break since because of the coronavirus and the quarantine and isolation and all the stuff we're all undergoing. We're going to address that first and talk about for the first 15. Thank you. For the first 15 or 20 minutes. And then, of course, we're going to take questions. And we've taken a bunch in advance, but we'll take them live, obviously, also. And I see a couple coming in already. But hi, my name is Rob. And, of course, I'll introduce the team who's off screen. We have a whole research staff working here. We try to do it right for you. Of course, I have my campaign manager, Claire Stagg, with me. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
And Dave is here, and Ash.
Hello.
Hey.
So we're off and running. So as I said, today is Wednesday, April 22nd. So what happened today was actually just recently. We're still reacting to this. We've done a Twitter response and Facebook, but we do a more formal one probably tomorrow. Our local congressman, Clay Higgins, today posted a video from D.C. in front of the Trump Hotel as basically a 2.5-minute long infomercial for Trump Properties, talking about how the basically he's calling for an insurrection against the government. And yes, that's true. You heard it correctly. And we were trying to find a way to state that didn't sound crazy, but it's impossible to do because the video is basically insane for an elected congressperson to post, saying basically that if the government doesn't open up the business on May 1st, and he even did a specific date on May 1st, if the government doesn't open business, America is going to go after the government, or should go after the government. It's open to interpretation, but it sounded pretty scary to us. We were looking at it, so we wanted to make sure we started off with that. So we're starting a timeline of what our actual elected congressman's doing versus what we've been doing over the last months. That's why we're doing it this way. I'm working backwards from today. And a few days ago, Congressman Higgins' last video basically went after Nancy, Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, for her delays or in the sufficient funding for the PPP program, obviously the Paycheck Protection. Small businesses are suffering right now, of course, because there's a lot of layoffs. And one thing I want to make clear is that while all of the state governors around the country, including our own John Bell Edwards, have issued guidelines, corporations looked out for themselves, and a lot of them shut down, non-essential businesses. There was a lot of categories, but this is all corporations taking steps to protect themselves. And Higgins seems to be trying to spin it as if the government is attacking people's rights by not letting them go out and infect each other. So on the 17th, Congressman Higgins did a video blaming Nancy Pelosi for delay on funding. And of course, as we know, if you keep up with the news, and we do for you, tomorrow they actually vote on that issue. So basically that was an impotent video. And that's why Congressman Higgins is in DC, because he has a vote tomorrow. He's trying to act like he's out there for the people, but and also on that same date, April 17th, which was 5 days ago, Pastor Tony Spell, the first parishioner from one of his churches died, or his church, I'm sorry, singular church, died on April 17th, which of course, a tragedy, but we're just establishing timeline here. And what we were doing, our team, of course, is that was the day that we had finished off handing out donated PPE that we got from courtesy of Mad Dog Pack out of Florida, is nationwide, trying to help different jurisdictions were hit very hard, and Louisiana was hit very hard earlier. And if it wasn't for John Bell's leadership, I think we'd be in a lot worse place than we are. But on that day, we were actually handing out masks in Lake Charles that ended up in the public defender's office because people couldn't get their lawyers to come visit them and incarcerated. So, a lot of times people don't look out for, it's like, well, they don't need masks. They're prisoners. Let them die. And that's not what a civilized society is about.
Rob, do you mind if I jump in right quick?
Sure.
I realize you're probably having a little feedback, so sorry about that. Also,
Are we? Oh, sorry.
Issue of mentioning the fellow that lost his life at Tony Spell's church. He died of COVID after
right.
attending one of those very large gatherings that Pastor Spell decided.
I'm sorry.
Guidance.
Yes, you're right. I left the whole relevance of me mentioning Pastor Tony Spell and his parishioner dying was because he died of COVID-19 after Tony Spell, which we'll get through in the timeline, had encouraged his parishioners to ignore the recommendation not to gather in masses. All right. And then a little further back, we go to April 13th. Our beloved Congressman Higgins on that day released a video attacking Kentucky law enforcement and the governor and other public officials for trying to enact the CDC recommendations against mass gatherings. He basically vaguely worded threats about the thin blue line and that any police officers who actually obeyed the governor's orders were betraying some sort of brotherhood. And it was very insurrectionist as well. That's what that day specifically was 1,200 face shields. And then we also visited the Lafayette General Hospital, the LGMC Lafayette General Medical Center, and 300 face shields and 1,000 masks. And that's what we were doing on that day. So we're out there on the front lines trying to defend the people. The state has done pretty well about keeping up with the demands in the COVID units, as we know, with N95s and certain masks, but your ambulances and your first responders, firefighters, there's a lot of people who are left a little bit short. So we've been trying to fill those gaps, and that's what we did on that day. We'll go back a little bit more. We go to April 10th. That's a day Congressman Higgins did a video demanding special treatment, as it were, for the oil and gas workers out on platforms, that they get 100% of the PPE they need. And testing. Sorry. COVID-19 tests, obviously, which is not in itself a bad thing, but omitting everybody else in the district. He was purely worried about the oil and gas industry, which means he'd gotten a phone call, I'm sure. And on that day, we were out there literally giving PPE to Acadian Ambulance here in the 3rd District, who covers the entire 3rd District. These literally putting masks to the people who were answering every time you call a 911 call. And we also had traveled to New Orleans that day. That was 5,000 masks that went to New Orleans. That was the first shipment that came in. And of course, the hospital in Baton Rouge, we were all over the district that day. Congressman does a video saying that oil and gas workers need tests. I guess you and I don't quite qualify unless you work for oil and gas. So, that's where that is. Backing up the timeline a little more. Then we're back to March 21st. That's when Congressman Higgins did his tanning salon video in front of local businesses, but he specifically mentioned the tanning salon. And I have nothing against tanning salons. Ash had mentioned it before. Is it an essential business? Probably not. So he had done a video in front of a tanning salon attacking our governor for, recommending a social distancing and avoiding non-essential businesses and not having more contact than necessary to try to stop the spread of this virus. And it's amazing that point is always overlooked. And it's also worth noting that on that Since that time, that video that Congressman Higgins did has been deleted. Going back a little more, we're back to March 13th. Higgins again did a video, and that's all he's been doing for the last month or so, is these little videos. So he's talking a big game, but he's hiding out too. He did a video.
I believe that was the day that he went on his little tangent about the ban on large gatherings applying to church services and how that was somehow
Unconstitutional.
as if he had read the Constitution.
Right, as if he's ever read the Constitution, and specifically the Bill of Rights that mentions that social distancing during a pandemic is a bad idea. But that's where he started this sort of messaging platform that no matter what the governor did, who of course is a Democrat, if you don't know our state, and of course a consequence of that, and the reason we're calling attention to it and establish this entire timeline, the consequence of that is when the pastor Tony Spell became emboldened and referenced Higgins specifically when he started posting his videos telling people to ignore the governor's orders and get out and go to the churches and send him your stimulus tab. And he actually continued services all during this quarantine time up until he was arrested this past Monday for trying to run over a protester with a bus, and it's on video. So that is what our elected officials in this state, you got John Bell Edwards and other people like, Mandy Landry, who's been a strong advocate, has been pushing for the vote by mail measure. And John Bell, started his task forces before we even had our first case in Louisiana. He was on top of all these things. I think it's time to switch the boards.
I think that it's time for us to move to actual questions.
Yeah, we can move to questions. I'll shut up now. I think I've been rambling on a bit.
Be a little Rob, give yourself some credit. Okay, so
I try to keep you all amused, but I had to let you know where we're at, and that's what we've been doing for the past month. I'm very proud of my team, and early on, especially in a political campaign such as we have, a lot of times the only one promoting is yourself. But we're starting to get out the word in the district, and people, I've seen viral quotes on Facebook, thanking Claire for the work she's been doing, and people talking about Ash and Dave and my whole team. I'm very proud of them. So that's why if I ramble on, I'm letting you know that we're actually just working class folks out here working for you working class folks. And we're working for the rich people too. We're not exclusionary unlike Republicans.
Okay, so let's in the interest of time, let's go ahead with the question.
In the interest of time, let's go on to the first question.
And I know this is your very favorite question because you get it 800 times a day.
Let me guess. Is it about health insurance?
It is about health or lack thereof, really.
Lack thereof, and
so
that's
do you support single payer healthcare?
Okay. And this is a question I get a lot of times, and a lot of times people don't understand subtlety. So I'm going to say it real simple this time, and then we can go in depth again, because I'm sure this question will come again. Whatever you'd like to call it, the goal that my campaign, and everybody here has is that every single person in the United States has health care. There are many different plans that have been put forward. There's been Medicare for all. There's been single payer. There's been, the public option. It's all healthcare. We want everybody in the United States covered. If one person could solve it, it would have already been solved. We need to work together, and that is the goal. And if you're voting for me, you're voting to make sure that every single American has healthcare. And we're going to find a way to do it. We're going to find a way to make it affordable. We're going to push back against the for-profit mandate of healthcare that happened with the 1973 HMO Act that Nixon passed. We absolutely want everybody to have healthcare. The most viable options are, I know people hate hearing it, but a lot of times incremental change is how things are done. And it's become obvious that we really need to improve healthcare in this country. Our healthcare workers have been doing amazing during this crisis, but it's also shown the limitations of our system, that people may survive the COVID-19, and many do. The mortality rate is low. However, they're coming out of it with long-term healthcare bills they're going to be paying for years. And there's a lot of after effects, and we can do better, and we will do better. What else you got?
So just to let y'all know, we're not skipping anyone. I saw there's a couple questions, but these were sent in before, so we're we're prioritizing those. So interesting one, Rob. I don't know if we talked about this before.
Sure.
I can't remember your handle on Twitter. Sorry. They asked, I would like to know your position on the separation of church and state. I know you're a man of faith. How much will this influence your policy making decisions?
Okay, that's an excellent question, and I'm glad we got that right out in front. After, of course, the healthcare, which is number one on everybody's mind. I am a firm believer in the Constitution of the United States, and specifically the Bill of Rights, and I have always held that position. And my personal faith, we talk about, and it's part of the Establishment Clause, that Congress shall pass no laws infringing on religion or establishing a state religion specifically was the wording. But I do believe that the government and any spiritual entity, any church, are separate. They're separate things. It should never be part of legislation, never will be part of legislation as far as I'm concerned. My wife and I go to a Catholic church. It has nothing to do with how I will pass bills or not pass bills. And the same as, if, there's a Baptist there and an Episcopal there and a Muslim over there and a Hindu over there, church and government don't mix. We've seen it. We don't throw dog whistles out. There's no secret agenda, and that's the way it should be, and that's the way our founding fathers intended, and that's the way we're going to keep it. I'm a strictly constitutionalist on that one, on all the Bill of Rights, actually.
Okay. I don't know if you're done there, but
was that too short?
I'm going to assume. Well, I mean, you're the one running for Congress, not me. Who am I to say? But you also had Louisiana has been one of the hardest hit states. I'm assuming they're referring to coronavirus. Who is it? How has the state been coping? And do you think state leadership has done a good job?
Okay, excellent question. Looked at today in the terms of per capita illnesses, we've actually dropped to fifth. Other state, which unfortunately means other states are doing worse than us, and that's not necessarily a good thing. But it does mean that the measures and steps that John Bel Edwards took early on have been effective, and we've pushed back where our healthcare system never got overwhelmed. And that's the most important part about social distancing that never gets spoken enough. And this is why we're going against Higgins. We are not anti-personal rights. Obviously, there's not a single one of us that would give up a single, constitutional right. That's not what this is about. This is about obeying common sense rules to look out for yourself and others. You have to look out for others. You may be a carrier and you may not even know it, and that sort of thing. So that's why we have strongly embraced John Bel Edwards' leadership. So he's done very well in that he was out ahead of time on the task force. Like I said, before we even had a single case in Louisiana, he had formed a task force. It was about a week before, if memory serves. We had heard about it popping up around the country, and he had a task force assembly. And I even tweeted about it at that time. You can look up in the archives, because I was very impressed. I mean, he was very much out in front. And very shortly after he formed that task force, he closed businesses, or advised the closing of non-essential, and then he closed schools. And then within a week after that, I believe he had set up the executive order to put freezes on evictions and utility shutoffs to protect people during this time, where we knew there was going to be economic disadvantage for the working class, for the average person. If you don't have an income, it's really hard to pay your mortgage. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And he had an executive order on that right away. Now we will call on JBE to keep going with that leadership and to put an executive order adding to freeze the debt collection of stimulus checks, which people are now, stimulus checks are coming into people's accounts, and then, you got unscrupulous people stealing them up. And a shout out to the LA Budget Project for that one. They're pushing that right now, and we support them in inviting or asking John Bel Edwards to address that going forward. Around the state, and I also mentioned Mandy Landry earlier, and I'll mention it again, the vote by mail initiative they're trying to push through for obvious reasons. Coronavirus isn't going away in the next week or 2 weeks, and it's going to be more than a year probably until we get a vaccine. So if you're looking realistically in the future, we need a way to safely protect our elections, the integrity. Presidential primaries are coming up. Then, of course, the major November 3rd election, which I think I have a personal involvement in as well. We need people to be able to vote and vote safely because that is a civic right and a civic duty, but we need to protect them. So,
well, that kind of goes to your next question, which was,
okay.
What should be done to protect the election process
there we go.
this year? Seems you kind of answered.
Yeah,
that.
I'll keep going on it because Mandy Landry, Representative Mandy Landry, out of New Orleans, what district?
It's 105, I think.
105 in New Orleans has been at the forefront of pushing this vote by mail initiative. She had a great tweet earlier, and where the legislature is right now voting by mail to find out if it's okay for the state to vote by mail. So the inherent reluctant hypocrisy is God bless Mandy Landry on that one. I love that tweet. But this is what we're up against. Yes, people should be, we are 100% behind that. People should be able to vote by mail because voting is an inherent right of American citizens. And, we're not going to let a virus keep us down, but we have to find a way to do it safely. And vote by mail is a no-brainer. And regardless of if vote by mail was actually, I forget what Trump called it, but it was something that wasn't true. That it was easy to hack or whatever. I mean, you're talking about your overseas military personnel vote by mail now. It's not an unheard of procedure. Many states already you can vote by mail. Just Louisiana didn't happen. We need to do it on a national level, but immediately we need to do it on a state level.
Yeah, it's the ultimate irony that they're going to vote by mail to make sure you can't
vote
by mail. But there's one I'm going to switch.
That is, I mean, it's true. This is Louisiana.
Yeah, I'm going to switch around a little bit.
Okay.
Just because I'm going to answer this one for you.
Sure.
I don't know. Demetria Jones asked if you're planning any type of voter registration drive, and while we will be in, working and helping organizations that might want to do that, we ourselves as a campaign are not really allowed to do a voter registration drive. So while that is a great idea, and if you know anybody doing that, we can support it. We can't do it ourselves.
Right, and I actually did know the answer to that one. It's a good, but Claire has it right. We are not allowed to actually perform a voter registration or drive ourselves. And of course, we can advocate for it and use our voice and our platform to do so, which we are right now. Register to vote, register your neighbor to vote, and tell their neighbors to register to vote. This is the most important election of your lifetimes. I know it's a cliche, but this time it's true.
While have already switched over to some of the live questions, you had one that came in 5 minutes early. Wow.
Oh my.
Sir,
go
would you
Rob
agree that everyone should have healthcare during a global pandemic?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have another one, so I'll go to that.
That's fine.
What could we have done better within the last few months? Good question.
Without pointing fingers, because a lot of times it does seem it's partisan blame, which we're at a phase right now where we don't need to be engaging in that. It is true that there was effectively a 70-day delay from the time when we knew coronavirus was probably going to be coming up until the time that actual tangible action was undertaken to start addressing the coronavirus. So we could have, could we have done differently? We could have not dismissed the pandemic response team at the advice of Ambassador John Bolton. We could have done that. We could have not fired the CDC's representative in Beijing, who was actually monitoring situation in China, which we did. So without naming parties, you understand who I'm talking about. There are things we could have done differently. I'm not a believer in time travel and we coulda, shoulda, woulda. Now we need to address what we need to do going forward. So that's why it is so much more important to not engage in these stupid distractions like what Higgins is doing about, he's arguing about whether a tanning salon should be open or not. The important thing is for us to keep each other safe. The government is not your daddy, but it is there to help regulate large numbers of people and responses using the resources that have been built for that purpose. So I think that answers the question.
Yeah, and we have quite a few, so I'm going to ask you.
Yeah. I'll shorten them up. Go ahead.
But
I like to talk.
So we do. Chris said, "Well,
Hey, Chris.
Chris said, how you doing?
How you doing? I'm
So,
doing good.
so
I'm doing good. A little tired, but aren't we all? We're fight through. Go ahead.
William, I assume it's C. William Run. We're gonna say William.
Excuse me.
Said, would you support hazard pay for frontline workers, not just medical workers, but all essential workers?
I would, but then that implies that I have some sort of influence over their pay.
Well, not really. It's would you support it if you did have influence?
Yes, of course. For example, when I worked in the drilling industry, if we did stuff during the day, you got a certain pay rate. If you worked third shift, you got an additional pay bump for different hours worked. So, I mean, private industry does do this, and that you may or may not know has been brought to you by unions, by the way. Workers' rights. So, yes, of course, I always advocate for workers' rights, and I think people who are literally putting their lives on the line and the lives of their families and other people they come in contact with should be paid accordingly, especially when we have no substitutes. We don't have extra doctors and nurses sitting around that aren't working right now. They're all in it. So, yeah. Short answer.
Okay, so I'm going to go back now to the pre-submitted questions. And for those of you who submitted several, I'm going to give y'all one at a time and see what time we have after that. So I don't think I just hate you. I don't. Carolyn Longley, okay, said, do you think we should start going out and not doing the social distancing thing anymore?
I would rather you didn't, unless you take astronomical precautions. The whole idea of social distancing is not just to protect yourself, but it is to protect others. If you are thoroughly OCD about washing your hands and wearing gloves and you wear a mask and you get tested every day to know that you're not a carrier, I would say, sure, re-engage your life. However, what we have to face, I think, is that we are going to have to take some measures of protection for ourselves and others over the next year. And I think we need to face that reality. Nobody's saying you're going to stay at home for the rest of your lives. But industries are going to have to address it on a industry by industry basis. Some jobs you can be further away from each other. The whole idea is to not spread this disease. We need to control the spread to keep it at a level where healthcare workers can deal with it.
Okay, I'm trying to interpret this. The question is from Matt, and he asked, do you believe that DDT should be used in underdeveloped countries to stop the spread of malaria and other illnesses? DDT being...
Oh, I got that one. I know what that is. DDT is a chemical that was actually banned in the U.S., and I'm thinking it was early 70s, but I don't remember the exact date. But at any rate, DDT was shown to... The main problem with it was that it was hyped up as being hyper dangerous for humans. But what it was is it was dangerous for certain species of bird, weakened their eggs, and that bird couldn't breed. So we banned it in the U.S., and then it became contingent on foreign aid. You couldn't get foreign aid if you used DDT, which was too bad because DDT was actually extraordinarily effective at... birds aren't.
They're not. But
hold on, I got to finish the question. DDT is actually extraordinarily effective at killing mosquitoes, and it is sometimes thought that the banning of DDT actually cost somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million lives lost to malaria because no other treatment that we found as yet is as effective on mosquitoes. So, do I think that other countries should be able to use it? I don't think we should be telling other countries what they can and can't do. That's the main thing. And certainly when it's not nuclear proliferation where it affects everybody around you. It is it's a very effective chemical at killing mosquitoes, and I think it was mishandled at the time, and it's unfortunate because malaria does take a lot of lives in third world countries, and they pay the cost for that.
So yeah.
Yes.
I missed this one at first. Jerry asked.
Hey, Jerry. No, you're good.
Are you done?
I can keep going.
I'd rather you didn't. We got some questions.
I know.
Let's go. Guys, we're a little out of it today.
Yeah, we
Jerry
are.
said
It's been a long month.
Some people, quote Nancy Pelosi, think that Social Security recipients. I don't know that. Okay, I'm just going to read the question and not pass judgment here. Some people, Nancy Pelosi, that's what it says, That's all. That's
Some
all it is.
people, Nancy Pelosi.
Think
Okay.
that Social Security recipients are a burden on society. What are your views, and how are you going to change things for senior citizens? We didn't have a decent increase in our Social Security in years. This is not an entitlement. This is money that we paid into the fund the government was supposed to manage, and all they did was steal from it.
Borrow against it,
Your
but yeah.
views would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. I'm 100% in favor of the SSI program. I absolutely will do everything in my power to defend it. I do believe we do need to increase benefits, just like I do believe we need a living wage that matches the GDP. There should be a cost of living increase. Yes, it is not an entitlement. I've paid into it my entire life as well. What's the lift the Social Security income cap? Where you get the benefits and you don't get them if you're rich.
I was trying to give you a segue to talk about like how to properly fund that. Jerry's correct that it's been
looted. We borrowed they say stolen. It's been borrowed against. It's not actually an insolvent program. However, it is a hole of debt because of people like what I hope to be a congressman have been in there looting it as a piggy bank to, instead of enacting good legislation, they just overspend. And that's been one of the sources, and it shouldn't be. It's not the government's money. It's a pool of money. It's a retirement fund that's been paid for by the American workers and should be treated as such.
Yeah, and the policy solution I was suggesting in order to ensure adequate funding was to lift the income cap on Social Security, after which you don't pay any Social Security. I think it's like $120,000.
Right. Okay. I have heard that. And yes, and this is why I will be a good congressman, because I listen to policy advice from people who know about specific issues. Yes.
Because you hired me. But,
and specifically because I hired Claire.
Thanks.
It's true.
Okay, let's see. We also
I don't even pretend that I know everything. And that's the good part. But we will always find the right answer, and we will always protect the American worker. That's 100% what we're about.
This one's pretty interesting.
Sure.
Asked, do you think the current global oil price global oil price drama will increase interest in renewable resources?
I would hope so. That's always been our position. We are always an advocate for alternative energy resources, not just because, and the timetable changes, but it's always been predicted that, the petroleum products will someday run out. And also there's kind of a global warming thing that whether or not it's directly caused by man-made, which is still under debate, and I don't even want to go down that road. And nevertheless, automobile emissions do not help global warming, period. Alternative energies, the main reason we push for them here in Louisiana is because we need alternative jobs. We need alternative industries. We, as Louisianans, are just about to encounter the cost of having all our eggs in one basket, and so much of our economy is geared towards the oil and gas industry. We're not anti-oil and gas. We just pro-diversity. We want more jobs, good jobs, jobs that have a future, solar, wind power, whatever we can find, whatever is being developed. There have to be ways to meet the growing needs of a growing society that don't involve pollution, cancer alleys, and all the negative side effects that come from certain industries that are, while important, if there are better solutions that also create new high-tech jobs, why wouldn't you be for them? Yes, we are pro-solar, always have been.
Okay, Brendan asked, how would you choose to augment the stimulus package?
Oh, okay.
Maybe the second one. I don't know which one they're referring to, but
we'll talk about it both. Obviously, there was the first stimulus package that everybody's aware of, and then they're about to take a vote on the one the Senate just passed. The House gets it tomorrow. The last stimulus package obviously included a one-time payment of $1,200 to every person who qualifies within that, and then also funded the PPP program to help small businesses stay afloat while this crisis is going on. And so the new stimulus package, what we're talking about here is, the benefits of it is that it does refund, as in adds more money back to the PPP pile. The things against it, well, of course, there's no more stimulus checks for individual people. In this bill, there's not a provision for, Ash and Dave or me, which I didn't even get a stimulus check the first time. to get an additional stimulus if this carries on much further. That's why a lot of people are crying about reopening the economy when their job is to protect their people. So why isn't there an additional stimulus check in here? You'd have to ask them. I know I would be in favor, of course, of additional stimulus. That's one of the cons against it. And another knock against the tomorrow's bill, of course, is that it still allows the loopholes that they add in there that prioritize big business to snatch up all these loans over the small mom and pops and that run 50% of the United States, small business. So those are the pros and cons.
I will say I don't know that it prioritizes them, but it doesn't include any.
It says right there on the board, prioritize.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm teasing you.
Way
Go
to
ahead.
sell the whole game, man. It doesn't so big businesses were obviously prioritized last time, and that's what happens when you got a high-powered banker on your side, right?
Sure.
The
Steve Mnuchin.
credit union down the street doesn't have
Right.
as much power to get you your SBA loan. But
Exactly. And once again, we're not trying to pit big business against small business, but as the expression goes, all politics are local. Well, all businesses are local. Do you care how Wells Fargo is doing? No. But do you care about the little credit union down where you put your paycheck in and then that's where you pay your mortgage out? Yes. And that little credit union is again going to suffer at being lower on the bar than, and again, I'm not picking on Wells Fargo, except that they're universally hated. So why not? You could say Chase, you could say any big bank. And that's what we mean by prioritized.
yes. Okay. I think this one's funny. But
Got a funny one.
well, it's only funny because anyway.
Go on.
Ron asked, it's not a funny question. I didn't mean to make light of
Oh,
it.
okay.
He asked, will you represent your constituents and not the company or lobbyist that last talked to you, which I think is
That's a
funny,
good one.
Yeah, as if we have context with law.
Yeah. Apparently, you didn't get we're in Louisiana, and we're the Democratic Party, which means the lobbyists and then the big business aren't exactly lining up to send us money. We are supported by, and I think the number right now is around 97% small donors. That's our campaign. We are for the people, of the people, by the people. So yeah, I'm not going to be a flavor of the month. Whatever lobbyist talked to me last is going to influence. You see how we've done this campaign, and this is kind of how it's going to work. Once we take office, is we actually engage with the electorate. We talk to you. We listen to you. We will then. That's how we're going to establish policy. We're going to use common sense and actually talk to the people.
To tweak you ever so slightly, we've gotten 100% of our money from individual donors, no lobbyists, 97% from small donors.
Small donors, yes.
$200.
Yes. Sorry, that is a good clarification. 100% are from small donors. 98% are less than $200. Really small donors, $20, $5.
Just to nitpick Clay, his small individual donor.
I think it was 3%.
3%.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
No, that's the radical difference. 97% of Clay is big PACs and lobbyists, and 3% small donors. So who do the people support? Hello.
Well, okay.
Me. Rob Anderson. Nice to meet you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, can we go on with the questions too? I'm going to discipline all of you prior to this.
Well, I'm trying to entertain the folks.
It's been a month.
It's been a month.
Okay.
Political videos are boring.
Folks, let's okay, so
I'm sorry.
I don't really know exactly
Seriously.
what this is referring to completely. It just says current direction. This was from Christian. Current direction on federal debt mounting and direction for 4 years from now. It's verbatim.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and assume that considering the amount of deficit we're running up every year in our budget, and then that being separate from debt, I don't see the debt going down right now. Do we want it to go down? Yes, of course. Does debt drive the American economy? Not in the way people think. It's not a negative the way people think. What is more important is our GDP and how it relates to actual living wages for the individual people. That's the important function. Should we have a balanced budget? And I know people have proposed a constitutional amendment to have a balanced budget. And there are a lot of issues at stake that we have to address. we shouldn't spend more than we have. However, you cannot do a budget omitting things and just cutting out, like, cutting out Meals on Wheels, which was like $3 million. And, we spend $700 billion on the military. It's a matter of using the people's resources to help the people. And sometimes that drives up debt, but that doesn't make or break our country because we are a giant consumer economy.
Okay.
I hope that answered it.
So I'm going to ask this one, but I'm not sure how you're going to be able to answer it.
Okay.
The question is,
I'll take a swing.
People who are not U.S. citizens be allowed to get Social Security without ever having put into it? The problem I have with the question is that that's
inferring that they do.
Not.
It's already against the law. That's one of those loaded questions, and I apologize. I'm not picking on anybody, but that is one that is presuming a problem that does not exist. If you are an illegal alien, you don't qualify for Social Security or legal.
I would ask that you use undocumented.
Undocumented. I'm sorry. Yes, it's. I get hammered by opposition too, and I hear it all day long. Yes, undocumented persons don't qualify for Social Security, so it's not a thing. Is the answer?
Yeah, we're all having a long one.
Yeah, it's just. I apologize. We're trying to be snappy for you, but it's been a tiring stretch.
Okay, we're gonna go back to Matt. What would you do about the current price of oil? It was trading in the negative yesterday.
I'm not sure what you would like me to personally do about the price of oil. I'll go out and fill up my gas tank. Maybe that'll help. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be glib, but again, I do have to be engaging on these things. The current price of oil, obviously, it is a huge market, and so much of the country is 100% reliant on the oil and gas industry. It will rebound because unless everybody stops driving cars forever, because the price of oil tanked, it will rebound. There's a lot of factors at play, including the price war that's happening right now with Russia and Saudi Arabia, and having an inept leadership, not addressing these problems as it happen. So as much as the government can regulate certain things, and of course you have a current administration that's big on just taking away all regulations. Well, this is what deregulation looks like when you don't have a kind of a traffic cop, speeding some lanes up and slowing down others. And so this is why we advocate for regulation, not to cripple business or to encumber them burdensomely, but to make sure they don't dump benzene in the ground and poison groundwater of a nearby town, which as we know about here in Louisiana, and that's what regulation is for. So the oil and gas market, we still rely a lot on oil. Now we have reached the point where we were producing 100% of our own oil domestically. Which is why Russia and Saudi Arabia got into this price war, and we're kind of in the middle of it, but it will rebound. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. That's what it's about. I would buy oil futures if I had money.
I wouldn't allow you to do that. So we only have about 15 minutes left, but
okay.
Andre asked, what are your views on Medicaid expansion in Louisiana, and did COVID-19 change your view at all?
Well, Medicaid expansion was a good thing. Obviously, it was something that John Bel Edwards on day one, and the end result of which is we have 500,000 people in our state, which is only 4.7 or 4.6 and change. The census is going to be delayed too. I just realized 4.7 million people in our state. Thank you, sir. And 500,000 new people covered by healthcare. So that tells you right there that the more people who have access to healthcare is part of the reason that we are now, after being one of the leaders in per capita early on when the virus first hit, of course, after Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and then spread throughout the state. But now we have it's being managed. It's actually seemed to have leveled out. And I'm not doing false optimism here, but I mean, we watch the numbers every day, and when it was going up exponentially early on, we seem to have it in control. So of course, Medicaid expansion, I'm 100% for it. It's the other party that is trying to sue to overthrow all that stuff. I think people having healthcare is a good thing.
Basic.
Pretty basic.
Let's see. A Here, I'm trying to-
Sorry, it's a little dry in here. That's why I keep drinking water.
Maybe it's just special.
Or I could
So let's see. Ray asked, "I love a plan for Louisiana, Lafayette Metro in particular, in a post-fossil fuel world, or to phrase less sensationally, how would we diversify our economy for the 21st century?"
Awesome. Good question. There's many things, and I know you don't want to address manufacturing on the moon, so we're not going to. So we're not going to touch that. But how we can diversify our industrial economy here, and a lot of times it overlaps in our state specifically because we have the ITEP program, which is at the state level. But on a federal level, of course, it can't help but or hurt but help to hurt. It can't but help to have a congressman who is advocating for alternative industry to come in, not to punish existing industry, but to add to it and diversify more jobs, economic expansion for Louisiana. That's why we want alternative energies and high-tech industries. And that goes back to our original platform, which is you're going to have to adapt a little bit in the days of COVID-19. But if you boost a region's infrastructure, its education, and its healthcare, that region will become more successful. So what we want to address is to make everybody in Louisiana have good healthcare and get access to better education. By education, we don't just mean 4-year degrees, but we mean apprentice programs through unions or trade schools where you can go into plumbing for yourself and open your own business. These are all part of economic expansion. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's just bringing the wheel down to Louisiana so we can get a piece of that pie. Good roads, public Wi-Fi. There's a lot of things we advocate. And it's all to make a region better, to make it appeal to like an Amazon warehouse if they're shopping one around, or any other, a branch of Google with a high-tech needing, high-tech workers. You boost education, you appeal to other businesses, you diversify, your economy gets better, and Louisiana gets better. And it's all about creating jobs and good jobs that have a future.
I guess I'll go ahead and get Ray's second question in there.
Sure.
Why is Louisiana's GDP ranked as 25 or so in the nation, but our state performs at the bottom on prosperity for individual indexes?
I think I just answered that in the one before. We're 25th in GDP because this is actually a very wealthy region for a few people in certain areas. We produce, and I forget the exact numbers, so pardon me, but we produce a lot of the country's rice. A large proportion of the country's shipping comes down the Mississippi through Baton Rouge. 60%, I believe, of everything shipped in the United States comes through Louisiana. We are, one of the leading producers of natural gas, which is a cleaner petro product, of course. We have offshore oil. There's a lot of oil. There's lumber. We have a lot of industries, but they're not spread out to be owned by the entire state. So some people are very wealthy and the rest of us work for them, kind of as a state whole. So diversification of industry allows more opportunity for every individual citizen. When you're talking about civil rights, kind of the same thing. Giving other people more civil rights doesn't take away yours. More wealth in Louisiana means more wealth for Louisiana.
Yeah. This sort of piggybacks on it, but Brock asked, Louisiana lost 28,921 residents between 2016 and 2017. I will note that a part of that may be due to flood situations, but it's
right,
of
course.
Do you have any plans to slow the loss and bring jobs back to Louisiana?
Sure. And again, that goes back to our kind of plan to push education, healthcare, and infrastructure. And all of that is to make this in a more appealing place for industry and industrial workers. And by industrial, industry can refer to any job. I don't mean just factory jobs, but I mean good high-tech jobs. Software development. The United States still leads the world in intellectual software development. A lot of manufacturing has gone overseas, which people talk about the causes of, going back to Clinton and NAFTA, and the ones that Trump just signed. But we do make things. We do make intellectual property. We make entertainment. Louisiana used to be one of the leaders in the film industry, but that's faded off the last couple of years. But you can encourage that. Any any kind of industry that is more industry that comes to Louisiana is a good thing. It's diversifies your economy. It makes you more recession proof. That right now Louisiana is about to take a hard hit because the oil industry tanked so badly. So that's what diversification does. It brings more balance so that your peaks aren't maybe as high, but your valleys definitely aren't as low.
Okay, and I will give you the sort of 10-minute warning here, and let me
10-minute warning. 10-minute warning, y'all.
Let me check to make sure we don't have any questions here. Otherwise, I'm going to take the last two from Christian being one. What is your opinion on the whole debacle with Pastor Tony Spell?
My opinion is, he was rightfully arrested for trying to back up a bus over a protester. So he's in the hands of law enforcement. Probably got bailed out, but I don't know. Obviously, you have to look at motives. Everybody, and we did a video about this that I've been rebroadcasting every Sunday since this began, in that we encourage people to keep their faith, but keep safe. Nobody is telling anybody how to believe when it comes to your spirituality. Let me make that very clear. Again, First Amendment, government, religion, don't mix. So nobody's telling people you can't be Christian. They wanted to turn it into war on Christianity. It had nothing to do with anything except any large gathering. They also banned baseball games. And I didn't hear Tony Spell out there complaining about baseball games. What he complained about was his revenue stream. And he actually told people to mail in their stimulus checks to him. So you have to cynically look at, is this a good person? Is this a religious leader? Or is this a con man who was, using an opportunity to run a grift? And anybody who tries to run somebody else over with a bus who's exercising their First Amendment rights to protest probably should be locked under the fucking jail.
Wow, okay. Would have really preferred you didn't say that, but we'll take it.
I got to give him the soundbite for the news.
Okay, so this is the last question. It's kind of funny, and I'm going to do a bit of projection here and assume maybe Christian might have been talking about the very excellent political platform of my boy Vermin Supreme. It just says ponies. I'm going to assume he's talking about the pony-based economy. Are you pro-pony for everyone?
I am pro-pony for everyone. I think everyone should have a pony.
How are you going to pay for it?
The same way we're paying Ruth's Chris to, not be open right now. I mean, we just print money. Isn't that what, Mnuchin wanted to do? Just print more money. We got off of the gold standard under Nixon. So, what we're based on is a GDP. A lot of people don't understand the economy. What we're based on is our potential to create wealth. And our country is very good at it. We have been industrious, freedom-loving people since we killed the people who were living here and took this country over. Well, everybody always overlooks it. We discovered this country, except for the people living on it already. And we're not, and we can't ignore our history. We were slave owners when the Constitution was signed. And, we do have things about our past that we're not necessarily proud of, but really that's what, hey, it really did. Well, it's getting to the ponies. And women couldn't vote till the early 1900s.
Rob, it was a funny question about ponies.
Did I blow up the whole session based on ponies?
No, you didn't. But
everybody should have a pony.
Have to actually, in all seriousness,
put
it down. So, let's see.
Excuse me. Vermin Supreme.
A couple highs, a couple how you doings, all of that.
Any names you want me to shout out?
Chris.
Hey, Chris.
So, you guys take care of yourself. Stay safe. See you on Twitter.
YouTube.
And
anybody else we don't get to, hey, good to talk to you. You can always find me on Twitter at Rob Anderson 2018.
So I don't know if you got 1 or 2 more minutes before we
okay. Well, I have nobody else.
Anything to say? Right. Anything to wrap up?
Any of y'all have anything to say that I haven't addressed? Shout it out. These are my team. These are good people. Don't let me down by saying
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put my advocate card in here.
There you go.
And say I don't know when or if the legislature is going back. Actually, if anybody knows, let me know. But
right.
call. I would assume the Secretary of State's office. Call your legislator, whoever, and ask that if they're voting by mail and vote by mail, that they vote that we be able to vote by mail.
And I will second that. And we did it. We addressed it a couple times with the vote by mail, but it can't be stressed enough that it's how stupid our state can sometimes be, that they are right now voting by mail to not vote by mail. And we ask that they vote by mail to that we can vote by mail so that we don't all die by exercising our constitutional right.
Get a Wisconsin situation going on. And then the second thing
nobody wants to be Wisconsin.
Is, we talked about earlier Clay's pearl clutching, hand wringing, whatever you're going to talk about this second stimulus bill. Well, he has to vote on it tomorrow.
Yes.
So hopefully he's arrived on his private jet by now.
We didn't bring up the private jet.
He's in front of Trump Hotel.
Yeah, he was in front of Trump Hotels. Yeah.
And you guys gotta let me have that joke. But guys, pay attention to how he votes tomorrow. If he's got so many concerns about what's in this bill, if he's got so many concerns about what is and is not being funded, then are those concerns enough that he's not going to vote for it? Are they legitimate, or did he, just feel a little wily and have some things to say?
Right. Did he just want to bark about partisan politics? Or is he actually looking out for the person?
Exactly going to bark about exactly that. But the thing is, do we want to have to borrow money that we can't really pay back? No. But
anyway.
So we gotta cut it out. So if you had anything you wanted to say, that was my
I'm just gonna wind it down.
My birthday's coming up. I'd like a pony.
Thank you, Osh.
Pony for Osh on our birthday, on her 29th birthday, of course.
Call it Sebastian.
Thank you all for joining us. I apologize for any. We were a little rusty, but we're working hard for you. We're gonna keep serving the people of Louisiana. We're showing it, doing it by example. You see it. We toot our own horn, but not as much as we could. We don't push it that much, but we're going to keep working for you. Thank you for joining us. Please stay involved. Please keep on as Claire pointed out, keep on your state legislators. Call them, let them know that we want to vote by mail. We have to think about the future. Thank you all, and good night. And I think the one already probably cut us off, but that's the live feed. Thanks all. Oh, that's right. It's not a touch screen. Bye-bye.
Awkward.
Every time.
Hold on. It's still running. Still live. End stream. Stop it.
Well, just press it.
There we go. Yes. And